All right, guys. Good morning. Just need to go ahead and get some things out the way before we get this started, and I think we did. So let's just go ahead and run with it. So put the screen on me. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. Today's date, October 13, 2019, and this is how the frack we got here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On how the frack we got here, we do try to take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means things of adult nature, language may be said, and things of a graphic nature may be shown. So viewer discretion is definitely advised. Um, so let's just go ahead and get into it. This probably been one of the worst weeks. Well, for one individual, but for the rest of us, this is kind of like they say that bad things come in threes, but realistically, I think for Trump, this actually might be his bad week.
Losses today in the courts for the Trump administration. How has the White House reacted?
Well, we're about to hear from President Trump as he departs the White House. But the president is certainly ending this week, Jake, with a barrage of more negative headlines on top of what we just learned. The former Ukrainian ambassador saying the president directly campaigned for her to be fired for political purposes. In a devastating blow, the president has also lost three high-profile federal court cases today. Jake, earlier today, he lost the court battle over turning over several years of his tax returns to Congress. His lawyers are saying that they are weighing an appeal to this decision by the D.C. Appeals Court. And then he lost two court battles on his signature issue, immigration. A federal judge in Texas ruled the president's national emergency declaration to build a border wall is unlawful and appears to poised to block the use of those funds, Jake. And in a third defeat, a federal judge today blocked a Trump administration rule that makes it more difficult for immigrants who rely on public assistance to obtain legal status. So really the trifecta there of these court rulings dealing a big blow to the president. As you'll recall, Jake, that controversial initiative that I just mentioned was announced back in August. And the president's top advisor, Stephen Miller, was asked about all of this today. He fired back at the court rulings, calling them disgusting federal injunctions that impedes democracy. And as we have seen in the past, Jake, the president is not afraid to go after federal judges. So we'll have to wait and see what he says in just moments. Now, a silver lining here at the White House for this White House today is this announcement that the president just made that a preliminary trade deal with China has been reached. The president just met with the Chinese vice premier in the Oval Office, but there are no details as of yet as to what that deal entails. You can imagine the president will want to focus on that rather than all of these court losses today. Jake?
All right, Pamela Brown, thanks so much.
Yes, as you can tell, Trump's not having a very good day, or I should say a very good week. Yes, a lot of the stuff that he did actually got thrown out, as you've already heard. Pretty much he is losing the immigration battle. He is actually trying to make it harder for illegal immigrants to try to get legal representation. That was thrown out the window. You heard about You actually heard about the border wall, which unfortunately with the military, he was able to get that money. A judge in Texas has ruled against it, saying that it should not happen, and therefore is holding that up, which I think is actually funny that a Texas judge actually sided with him. And on top of that, it's just the thing that's going on, of course, with the Democratic impeachment inquiries. Keep in mind, these are inquiries. And it is amazing to me the level of opposition is to an inquiry. Okay, for those that do not know, yes, the Democrats are looking into an impeachment inquiry. What that basically means is that they are basically reviewing all evidence and seeing if there's a case to impeach. Even though at this time, the last time I checked, there were 227 Democrats in the House that wanted to move forward with an impeachment, and because they have the majority of the votes, they're able to do so now. However, they are looking into all aspects of everything before they move forward. Now, with an inquiry, that basically means that you can't do anything. Basically, if you're getting investigated or there's an inquiry on you, it's just a way of saying we are just investigating you, and you can't defend. There's nothing to defend because you're not being indicted, and that is where, as you can tell, President Cheeto doesn't get the hint. Which I think it's funny now is that you can see the damage control that's being done around the White House, especially in this next story.
With two men involved in his personal attorney Rudy Giuliani's efforts to dig up dirt on Joe Biden, now suddenly indicted on campaign finance violations, President Trump sounded off to reporters as he left for a rally in Minneapolis.
I don't know them. I don't know about them. I don't know what they do. But I don't know. Maybe they were clients of Rudy. You'd have to ask Rudy. I just don't know.
The arrests of Giuliani associates Igor Fruman and Lev Parnas as they were allegedly trying to flee the country are only adding to calls from Democrats for the president's outside lawyer to testify in the impeachment inquiry.
Giuliani's been involved up to his neck in this entire mess. He has an obligation to testify under oath so he can be asked questions and so this can come to light.
The president's lead impeachment lawyer, Jay Sekulow, responded in a brief statement, read the indictment. Neither the candidate nor the campaign have anything to do with the scheme these guys were involved in. But photos are surfacing of Fruman and Parnas meeting with Mr. Trump and his family. Giuliani was just boasting earlier this week that he wants to tell his story to lawmakers.
I would love to testify and give me a half hour to point out Biden Inc. 4 decades of crime. I'd love to do it.
The president continues to blast the fast-moving impeachment proceedings, tweeting, "The president of the Ukraine just stated again in the strongest of language that President Trump applied no pressure and did absolutely nothing wrong."
They have eviscerated the rules. They don't give us any fair play. It's the most unfair situation people have seen. No lawyers, you can't have lawyers, you can't speak, you can't do anything. You virtually can't do anything.
But past supporters are coming forward to criticize the president's call on the leader of Ukraine to investigate Biden and his family, including Mr. Trump's former national security advisor, H.R. McMaster.
Do you think it is appropriate for the President of the United States to solicit foreign interference in our political process? Thank you.
Of course, no. No, it's absolutely not.
George Conway, husband of White House counselor Kellyanne Conway, has formed a group of conservatives slamming Mr. Trump's actions, saying in a statement, these acts, based on what have been revealed to date, are a legitimate basis for an expeditious impeachment investigation. Conway told CNN contributor Preet Bharara the White House refusal to cooperate with the impeachment probe doesn't hold up.
The thrust of it is that there are some kind of constitutional obligations that the House has failed to meet that therefore render its impeachment inquiry illegitimate and unconstitutional, which is complete nonsense because all the Constitution says is that the House has the sole power of impeachment.
The president is lashing out at a new Fox News poll, finding 51% want to see Mr. Trump impeached and removed from office, tweeting, "I have never had a good Fox News poll. Whoever their pollster is, they suck." Mr. Trump is also losing some support from Republicans who are outraged over his decision to greenlight Turkey's invasion of Syria, where pro-U.S. Kurdish fighters are being killed.
They didn't help us in the Second World War. They didn't help us with Normandy, as an example.
Some GOP lawmakers are rejecting the president's excuses.
Whether or not they were involved in Normandy, okay, they were involved in fighting ISIS on behalf of the United States of America willingly because we didn't want to put forces on the ground.
Others in the party want off the Trump train now.
I'm heartbroken. In fact, I called my chief of staff in D.C. I said, pull my name off the I support Donald Trump list. I mean, this was just, we have just stabbed our allies in the back.
With two men involved in his personal attorney Rudy Giuliani's efforts to dig up. With two men involved in his.
Sorry about that. Got a little gunshot. So as you can kind of tell, in so many ways, Trump's not having a good day. Pretty much, as you can tell, that his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and his culprits, two of them that have now just been arrested, possibly put on finance charges. It is amazing to me that you can literally see the holes in the ship. And trust me, the ship is breaking. And it amazes me that President Trump still sits there and says, well, it's an impeachment. You can't really do anything. No, it's an inquiry. They are allowed to investigate you. And you're acting like, oh, this is a big witch hunt. Again, I would usually side with that. Yeah, it would be a witch hunt if they found nothing. However, they seem to always find something, and it always leads to dirty money. That always leads to culprits. That leads to people being arrested. That leads to people being indicted. That leads to people getting prison time. And yet the big correlation among all of this is that it relates back to President Cheeto. And it's amazing to me that at the same time he wants to then go, well, this is a witch hunt. No, it's not. It's not. He wants to call it a witch hunt because that's what he's used to. He's used to attacking. And it's amazing when he's being investigated how quickly he wants to play the victim, which I find interesting because he's done that all his life whenever he comes being investigated. But again, I shouldn't also be surprised. Just with simple fact in the matter of this as well is just that, well, he's actually, we always keep on saying he picks the best people. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Has just tweeted that the acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan has he's out. Kevin McAleenan has done an outstanding job as acting Secretary of Homeland Security. We have worked well together with border crossings being way down. Kevin now, after many years in government, wants to spend more time with his family and go to the private sector. Congratulations, Kevin, on a job well done. I will be announcing the new acting secretary next week. Many wonderful candidates. Well, that list is shorter than it was, 4 times ago because McAleenan is the 4th person to head the Department of Homeland Security under President Trump, and he's only been there since April. Pamela Brown out front live outside the White House. So, Pamela, the old I'm going to spend more time with my family. What are you learning?
Well, a source is telling my colleague Jay Tapper tonight, Aaron, that Kevin McAleenan turned in his resignation today here at the White House. And a source says that actually White House officials tried to tell him not to resign, but he did so because, according to the source speaking to my colleague Jake Tapper, it was something he wanted to do because he felt like he had done the job he was set out to do. Border crossings are down. He had done a lot of the work that he had hoped to accomplish, and he wants to spend more time with his family. Now, this isn't a total shock. We have been reporting for a while that he was not expected to remain in that job, and he's been acting Homeland Security Secretary since April. He was not expected to ever be given the permanent position. And a source telling my colleague Jake Tapper that also this has been in the works for weeks. In fact, just last week, Aaron, as you'll recall, McAleenan had told the Washington Post in an interview that he felt like he couldn't run his own department because there were other players within the department who had the president's ear. They would go around him, and he felt like he didn't have full control. And that was seen to many as sort of a sign that he wouldn't be in his position much longer. But according to sources tonight, Aaron, McAleenan is leaving on his own terms, turning in that resignation letter to the president, and the president just announced.
Now, see, there's one problem I have with this, and the problem I have with this is just that the old and you heard it, the old I'm leaving to spend more time with my family excuse. It doesn't bite. Keep in mind, Trump has never been able to keep anybody in the administration long enough. So, seeing this as the 4th person as the director of Homeland Security, are we really surprised that a person sitting there giving his resignation just all of a sudden decided to spend more time with his family? I'm going to guess either scandal or a simple fact of the matter is President Trump wanted him to do something he didn't want him to do. He didn't want to do, and therefore decided to say, fuck you, I'm out, before he could fire him. But I'm kind of leaning more towards scandal, just because you were the acting director of Homeland Security, and it's like saying, well, I just want to spend more time with my family. Nah, there's something else there. But then again, I shouldn't be surprised. Trump administration, it's more like a revolving door of employment, because actually at this point, they've got a higher turn-down rate than most Amazon workplaces. But again, shouldn't be surprised. But moving right along, since we're still in Trump country, this also happened, and I'm surprised this woman is still around.
Middle school teacher's racist rant after a fender bender in the school parking lot. Here's Stephanie Ramos.
Go back to your welfare. Tonight, a Pennsylvania middle school teacher has been suspended after her racist rant aimed at an African-American parent dropping off his child in the school's parking lot. Probably on welfare, too.
Not even a little bit. 6 figures a year, man. It's because I'm young and I'm black, and the reason why you would say that.
That's right, because you're black. The parent, who does not want to be identified, says it all stemmed from a minor fender bender in the parking lot of Drexel Hill Middle School. In the video, you see the teacher come out from around the truck and yell derogatory statements and a racial slur toward the parent. Tonight, the school district's superintendent speaking out.
This is not the appropriate way to interact or to communicate with anybody in the public.
As for the parent involved, he commends the district for how they're handling everything, adding that one teacher does not represent an entire school. David.
And yes, one teacher does not represent an entire school. However, when your first go-to is to say, you know, go home, nigger, I'm like, she's allowed to teach? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised because, you know, just the same way like they've infiltrated law enforcement, there's also those that infiltrate education. And yeah, the school did, I won't say school take appropriate measures because a fender bender and you decide to lash out at a parent and you're a teacher, that's kind of saying a lot. And Trace, thanks Trace for watching, by the way. Yeah, you are right. Trump does keep a revolving door on his businesses. You can tell it with every one of his failed businesses that, you know, employees come in and come out. A resignation is a firing. You write your resignation letter the first day. You got a point there. I mean, in his case, it's more from a political standpoint. It's just that it's almost like we can't have the president just go around firing people. And at the same time, it's just like, no, he is firing people. And he does it in the most punk-ass way. He does it on Twitter. Matter of fact, I would be so glad if he does get impeached or if someone else gets voted in. I am so tired of looking at presidential things from Twitter. And at the same time, I actually want to get off Twitter just because the fact of the matter is the CEO of Twitter could have done us all a favor and just pretty much blocked his ass. But anyway, but moving right along though, guys, about this one, like I said, President Cheeto just has a lot of things that don't make sense to me. In this case, well, just look at the language.
Tonight, a truce in the trade war with China. President Trump announcing the breakthrough, what he calls phase one of a deal in the Oval Office, sitting with China's top trade negotiator.
I think ultimately it's going to be just fantastic for China and fantastic for the United States.
In this first phase, the United States will suspend a tariff hike on $250 billion in Chinese imports, set to go into effect Tuesday. In return, China agreed to dramatically raise its purchases from U.S. farmers and will now buy between $40 to $50 billion in U.S. farm products.
The farmers are going to have to work a lot of overtime to produce that much. That's the largest order in the history of agriculture, by far.
Stocks jumping more than 300 points on the news. Still, it's not a done deal. Among the remaining sticking points, China's theft of intellectual property and currency manipulation. But tonight, the president optimistic.
There was a lot of friction between the United States and China. And now it's a love fest. That's a good thing.
A strong economy is key to the president's reelection, and he'll likely take a victory lap at his rally here in Louisiana tonight.
So, what do we need to take from that? Basically, what we need to take from this is, apparently President Cheeto has been watching way too many Marvel movies because calling it phase one of his plan, to me, sounds like the simple fact of the matter is, you're waiting for the Avengers to fucking show up. Number two, the thing I took about from this, and Trace, you literally beat it to me. Well, in a sense, farmers are getting paid not to grow shit under Obama. Not really. Subsidies were actually passed to other areas, but I won't say this happened under the Obama administration, but that's neither here nor there. But basically, the whole idea of this, and the reason why it sounds so fishy, is basically because, keep in mind, the tariffs that President Cheeto put in hurt American farmers because China decided not to buy soy or any other farming exports from the U.S. and actually went to different countries during the time of this tariffs that Trump put out. So it is amazing to me, like the one thing that was stressed out in this deal was that China was buying twice as much of our U.S. farm products as it did in previous years. What does that basically mean? That basically means that this deal was set up to basically save his voter base. His voter base is farmers because let's be honest, if you've been paying attention this year, he has actually bailed them out not once but not twice. And again, they didn't go to all farmers because there are still some farmers who are facing financial hardships that are due to the tariffs. And the simple fact of the matter is, Now this looks like he's trying to save the farmers, simply put, because let's be honest, Trump can't afford to lose any votes right now. But calling it phase one of the deal, it's not a deal. Actually, the funny part is, as I've said it many times before on this podcast, you cannot take on a basic conglomerate that controls production, costs, and services. China does that. You could argue up and down that China needs a better trade deal. China can leave us and be going. Keep in mind, we still owe China money from previous wars because they basically loaned out the money to us. So with that also being said, it is amazing to me that he thinks that he can negotiate a trade deal, and it's basically going down the tubes. However, if you really look at it, China still comes out winning either way. But at the same time, the emphasis on farming exports being purchased by China kind of says that Trump's trying to pander to his voter base. He should. Elections next year. Speaking of elections, Senator Warren, which I have to give her credit for this, basically gave the most, I won't say savage answer, but I will say it was a very strategic answer, and I dug it, and I just had to play it again.
And says, Senator, I'm old-fashioned, and my faith teaches me that marriage is between one man and one woman. What is your response?
Well, I'm going to assume it's a guy who said that. And I'm going to say, then just marry one woman. I'm cool with that. Assuming you can find one.
Savagery. But yes, that was actually at a town hall in which the person, was asking, I'm old-fashioned, my faith says marriage should be between one man and one woman. And Senator Warren decided to go pretty much using logical sense. Well, what if I want to marry? What if my definition of marriage between a man and a woman? Then just marry a fucking woman. I mean, she didn't say it in that terms, but still. I love the fact that she just simply laid it out. If you want to marry a woman, go for it. We're not holding you against it. Which, in a sense, it's this twisted. How can I put this ever so nicely? It's this twisted religious approach, because it can only be by man-orientated religion that marriage should be defined between as a man and a woman, because there are some people who are basically some repressed homophobias. They have some repressed homophobes to where if two men want to get married, if two women want to get married, hey, knock yourself out. You want to be polygamous? Knock yourself out. It's your choice. Your choice doesn't affect me and how I go to bed and how I live my life. So therefore, whatever I do won't affect you and vice versa. It always amazed me so that in every type of, the only place you probably won't see that, you'll always see it in a Democratic town hall or debate. You will never see it in a conservative, because it just amazes me so that why is that a thing at this point? At this day and age, it's 2019. Why the fuck are we still worried about same-sex marriages? Why the fuck are we still in that bubble? That's the thing about it. That's why I sit there and say we can't really call ourselves progressive if we are still really back at the same point of like, well, I just don't think that my faith. Okay, that's your faith. Your faith is your faith. Your faith is not my faith. So therefore, you should be able to live your life and be fine. But yet, again, those people that, live by their faith always want to press their religions on other people. And again, we see that with Elizabeth Warren, and I gotta give her respect for answering that one. She told the truth, but at the same time, she put a little panache on it. Kind of roasted the guy. I'm not mad about that. I thought that was pretty cool. But again, speaking of progressive, I'd never thought the day I'd see this on Sesame Street. And again, shouldn't really be surprised, just because I do love it, and it says a lot about society.
Now the new face of America's addiction crisis.
My mom was away for a while because she had a grown-up problem.
It's part of Sesame Street in Communities, supplemental online content that's free to providers, parents, and caregivers, designed just for kids who are often the unseen victims of addiction.
I love my mom so much, and she couldn't take good care of me because she was having such a tough time.
For some videos, Carly is joined by favorites like Elmo or Abby. For others, 10-year-old Celia Woodbury.
When I was this age, you had to leave.
whose own parents battled opioid addiction and are now in recovery.
What do you want to tell kids who are going through similar things?
I want them to know that we're not alone. We'll all feel like our big feelings inside. We're strong and we can all work together.
Even at 10, Celia relates to Carly. For families like hers, it's a way to open up dialogue.
It kind of takes away the stigma and the judgment and encourages people to be open-minded, and it's a huge crisis.
A crisis Sesame Street just couldn't ignore. Impacting the smallest among us, who now have a new friend to turn to for help. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC.
And, like I said, Sesame Street introducing a character whose family is affected by opioid addiction. Again, I've said it before, it's only a problem when white people are affected. But for the rest of us, they just tell us to get off of it. So aside from that, I do love the fact that Sesame Street, for what it is always trying to expand. Is always trying to basically make the world relevant. And of course, they did before, as far as having a puppet on there with same-sex parents, having a puppet on there with natural hair. And like I said, the only thing I didn't like about Sesame Street, I won't like about Sesame Street, it's really not their choice. They were purchased by HBO, but used to be a part of NPT, which was National Public Broadcasting. But again, give props to Sesame Street for covering something and not pretending like, everything's okay. But I do love the fact that they're trying to approach that in a very nice manner, and I can't knock it for that. Now, also, before I get into this other story, I never thought I'd see this day happen. A Fox News person is leaving Fox News. And, well, let me first play the video so you get the idea.
Gathering and reporting the news has been my life's work. This is my last newscast here. Thank you for watching today and over the decades as I traveled to many of your communities and anchored this program, Studio B and Fox Report, plus endless marathon hours of breaking news. Even in our currently polarized nation, it's my hope that the facts will win the day, that the truth will always matter, that journalism and journalists will thrive.
Yes, Chef Smith, as they call him, is actually no longer with the Crazy Train. And a lot of people were actually surprised by this, considering how long his tenure has actually been at Fox News. And it amazes me so that a lot of people are going, well, why did he leave? Well, there's a reason for that. Attorney General William Barr, as I like to call him, President Cheeto's personal lawyer, met with Rupert Murdoch, the CEO of Fox News, just the day before yesterday. And at that meeting, that's when Shep Smith announced his resignation. I'm not saying that the two have something in common. I'm just saying that Fox News, for the longest time, used to praise President Trump for everything that he was doing. But if you actually have noticed, two names on the show, Shep Smith, which the guy I just showed that's actually resigning, was speaking out against Trump as far as doing fact checking. Chris Murphy, who's actually on Fox News Sunday, was also going after Trump, which I won't be surprised if either he changed his tune or he'll be announcing his resignation. It's just getting to the point to where, like a long time ago, I used to sit there and call Fox News basically the state news, because the state news would always back whatever the regime is, and it is getting to the point now to where even they can't defend this fool. So again, it's not surprising to where you see Chef Smith decided to sit there and go, "Fuck it, I'm out," and I can't blame him for that. But it just sounds like a person, and you're right, LaRonda. It sounds like he took the right pill. You're exactly right. I think he took the exit. He saw the writing on the wall. Because let's be honest, they're probably going to find somebody in there, and wouldn't be surprised if he starts talking pro-Trump and literally tries to define everything this man has done right, which I dare anybody who watches this podcast or watches this replay to show me at least one positive thing Trump has done where it doesn't benefit him during his presidency. But again, hey, I gotta give it to somebody. When you see the exit, take the exit. And also, speaking of taking exits, well, again, Trump's not having a very good week.
Philadelphia has ordered Johnson & Johnson to pay $8 billion in punitive damages to a man who says the drug Risperdal caused him to grow breast tissue. The man said he started taking the antipsychotic drug as a 9-year-old to treat symptoms of autism. His lawsuit accused the drug maker of downplaying the risk of breast tissue growth in boys. Johnson & Johnson called the award excessive and unfounded and vowed immediate action to overturn it.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, what about this? Because you guys, like my previous podcast, I did say the Johnson, not only the Johnson family, but the Combs family that was actually over a certain opioid that was sold, recently had to turn around and actually were hit with a $10 million verdict. However, in this case, Risperdal, which was actually used to combat antipsychotic drugs, was now about to pay $8 billion. Now, the reason why this is relevant, because basically this actually is a growing sign that a lot of our drug usage is, aside from it not being properly regulated and literally ran by Big Pharma, this has always been the one thing that I've always sat there and said about these side effects of these drugs. Because we've all seen the commercial. Let's just be honest. We've seen the commercials where, certain side effects may include headaches, may include nausea, may include increased diarrhea, may include oily discharge from your butt. We've all seen them. And the side effect, in very least cases, death. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to, take headache medicine and then the least of the side effects is death. But, headache must be that damn bad. But again, this actually goes to the whole thing of, because with Johnson & Johnson, the Combs family, both being Trump supporters, this is literally just shining a light on what's actually going on with that. And the simple fact of the matter is just that our addiction to these kind of drugs with these side effects is starting to become more and more apparent. And Again, we shouldn't be surprised, because yes, Johnson family are going to appeal that decision or try to, but at the same time, $8 billion is saying a lot. But speaking of a lot, like I said, as far as Trump basically having a bad week, his arch nemesis, the state of California, has actually come out basically shooting all barrels. And what I mean by that is that Governor Newsom, who is now the current governor of California, has actually signed 3 bills into place. He has actually signed the first bill, which actually bans private prisons and detention centers. Basically, starting January 1st, there is a new law that goes into effect that all contracts and contract renewals for-profit prisons are terminated and therefore therefore forbidden. Now, what does that basically mean? Keep in mind, guys, that a lot of this stuff about private prisons and for-profit prisons did stem from the Clinton administration, mainly put because of President Clinton signing into law about greater, harsher penalties, the 3-strike rule, for people on drug offenses, things of that nature. Basically, that snowballed into what we have today, which there is a private prison industry, and that private prison industry is a 35 billion, and I mean billion with a B, industry. $35 billion a year industry. And the thing about it is, these for-profit prisons have contracts with the state, and that the state has to actually make sure these prisons are filled. If not, they're paying penalties, which is the reason why so many crimes are looked at a little bit more harshly than what they should have, and that's the reason why they pretty much made profit off of us. I have to give California props because they are taking a stand on this. If you really think about it, they're about to tackle legal consumption of marijuana. They're about to tackle, which is the next story I'm about to go into very soon, about abortion. And the thing about it is, they're really trying to be more progressive. Keep in mind, this is the same country, this is the same state that wants to input its own EPA standards in because Trump was trying to devalue theirs. So it is amazing to me at this point that California is taking a stand on for-profit prisons. I only wish Tennessee would do the same. Unfortunately, the CCA's headquarters is in Nashville, Tennessee. Yay. But again, that's just one. Another one is basically the next thing that Governor Newsom did, which basically California just became the first state to require that public colleges are required to provide abortion medication for students on campus. Under the new law, all the 34 colleges and state universities will need to provide this medication, which is currently not on campus, but offered at no cost to students. Now, for a lot of you people out there, you're probably wondering why in the world we should be concerned about that. Well, you should be concerned just because somebody resists that. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Never cease to amaze me the attacks on women as far as, just trying to get birth control, just trying to get all services to them that are available to them without having to jump through so many fucking hoops to do so. I think this is a great move. I think all colleges should adopt this. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some private colleges out there that are going to be like, well, this goes against our religion, creed, all that bullshit. But again, it's one of those things to where it needs to happen. It's like we need to protect our women. We need to protect our young girls. We need to be able to make sure that all available services are offered to them. There is no harm in that. It's like if you want to have a baby, have a baby. But if you don't want to be a mother, there's that option too. Nothing wrong with that. And I love the fact that the governor of California, like I said, coming out on all barrels about this, because keep in mind, you would think for all the times that Trump doesn't like abortions, and we wish that his parents supported him. But anyway, the third one I do have here, the last one I have here for California, is that it's gonna be controversial, especially if you're a gun owner. The other bill that they put in place was that they had a gun violence restraining order. So let me explain this. Basically what this is, think of it as like a restraining order for those that have guns. If you feel that the gun owner is threatening or harassing you or putting you in a state of danger, you could actually put what they call a gun restraining order. What actually happens is during that gun restraining order is that the police investigate said person. If they deem it a threat, then the person's weapons are taken away from them, and a restriction as far as being around you, usually 1,000 feet, something like that, is put in place. Now, of course, a lot of gun owner rights groups and the Americans and the ACLU are saying this is a threat to civil liberties. I don't see how, because again, this has to go into effect that there has to be a clear threat of violence. If there is not a clear threat of violence, the guns are not taken away. If there is a clear threat of violence, then yes, the guns are taken away and a restraining order is put in place. What is so hard to understand about that? Except the simple fact of the matter is, you do have gun nuts out there that sit there and say the government's still coming for my guns. Anytime you hear a new legislation out, gun owners, I'm a gun owner. Nobody's coming to get your guns anytime soon. Actually, I'll take this back. Name me one point in U.S. history where the government was trying to take your guns before the Revolutionary War. That's all I'm saying. Beyond that, it was a tyrannical government. That's the only reason why you still have guns. You don't have guns because it's your God-given right. You basically have access to firearms because at one point we were afraid that our government was going to become a British monarchy. And as you can see, it's not that. Although President Trump wants to be a dictator so fucking bad. But anyway, love the fact of what California is doing as far as the steps they're taking to literally show to be a little bit more progressive. I mean, you can like it, dislike it. I think it's cool. But kind of getting toward the end of our last stories, this other story is basically about healthcare. And I've said it before about healthcare. The levels people have to go to just to get care is almost ridiculous. Especially if you ever had surgery. And this what this story is about. And it's just best if I play it. It's really best if I play it.
Case profiled in our series, Medical Price Roulette is prompting officials in New York State to propose additional consumer protections to prevent surprise medical bills. Now, Anna Werner is once again teaming up with the journalists at Clear Health Costs and looks into a cost-saving alternative for routine surgeries.
You're going to feel a little bitty stick and a burn, okay?
James Schleeper drove 5 hours from Central Texas to this surgery center for his hernia surgery, a procedure his catastrophic insurance doesn't pay for. Hospitals back home quoted him cash prices of over 30 grand.
So this process is
a nightmare.
Then he went online and found Surgery Center of Oklahoma's cash price, just over $3,000.
It's like a la carte menu at a Mexican restaurant. It's great. What do you want? That's how much it costs.
Patients are quoted anywhere from 6 to 10 times what we have listed online.
Anesthesiologist Keith Smith runs the center.
We've basically taken control of the institutional part and whittled that down to a razor-thin profit margin.
But they only perform certain outpatient procedures like knee or gallbladder surgeries, and they don't take insurance.
But the bottom line is they have one price, they pay cash, they have the procedure, and that's it.
And that's it.
Negotiation of pricing.
Around the country, middle-class Americans with high-deductible insurance plans are heading to dozens of cash-based surgery centers like this one. But New York University health economist Sherry Gleed says not everyone can pay cash, and this won't solve the system's larger problems.
I laud people for wanting to try and find workarounds in the system, but I think what this story really tells us is how outrageously variable everything in U.S. healthcare really is.
Why can't we just know what it costs?
Transparency.
Right, transparency would be great.
Not all procedures are shoppable.
Thank you again.
But for Schleeper, the trip was worth it. Anna Werner, CBS.
That is crazy. I mean, not crazy that I get it about surgery. Trust me, I have family that went through it, and people I know that went through it, and the cost of even something simple like case in point, I have seen people who have watched the birth of their children in hospitals, only to turn around and get hit with a $25,000, $35,000, $20,000, $20,000, $30,000 bill for the delivery, hospital stay, things of that nature. $30,000 just for the birth of your child or children if you have more than one. Think about that for a second. This is honestly how fucked up our health system really is. And don't get me wrong, alternatives like, as the gentleman once said, about just going to cash surgery centers is not a bad thing. But at the same time, it is amazing to me that this screams so much that our healthcare has problems. This screams so much that something honestly needs to be done. And when you have a person, like the story says, that drove all the way out to 4 or 5 hours out of his way just for a life-saving surgery, only because his insurance wouldn't pay this, but he goes to the same spot, he goes to another spot that does the same thing for much less. Granted, it's still $3,000, and yeah, he might have had $3,000, and that's great. But just like the economist said, not everybody's got $3,000 to $5,000 laying around to where they'll be able to go somewhere, get the surgery done, and not be too much out of pocket. I've known people that have told me that they have actually went overseas to get surgery done just because it's cheaper. Again, this just shines a bigger light on the simple fact of the matter that our healthcare system is fucked up. Big Pharma controls it. Companies like Cigna, Aetna, United Health, HCA, I can keep going down the road. These major healthcare companies have such a stranglehold on our American care system, it is utterly ridiculous. At the same time, he does say he breaks one thing, the transparency in pricing. Who sets the prices? Healthcare companies. Because it's definitely not the hospitals. It's definitely not the hospitals. It's not the doctors. It's not the surgeons. It's the healthcare companies. Because, as I said it once and I'll say it again, America's healthcare system is a for-profit business. And that is the fucking problem. But again, can't knock it for going to cash surgery centers because, if you need something that saves your life, and you in the hospital and your insurance telling you that you got to pay $35,000 versus paying $2,700 at a surgery center in Ohio, you're gonna make that drive to Ohio. Let's just be honest. And because before we get to our feel good stories, I just got to give this one. This by far this just screams Trump's America, and it's just best if I play the video. I can't even explain it.
Flag and a voucher for a firearm. That's what you'll get when you purchase a vehicle here at Carolina Ford in Honeypath from now until the end of November. God Guns in America. That's how Carolina Ford is marketing its latest promotion.
What that means is when you come to the dealership, you purchase a vehicle, you will be actually leaving the dealership with the Bible and your American flag, and we'll give a voucher to you to go to a local reputable gun store.
The promotion has gained the Honeypath dealership national attention.
We've had people from far as Texas, Pennsylvania. I think we've had a couple of them from Oklahoma.
General Manager Derek Hughes says customers are making the trip here just to buy a car, which of course comes with the Bible, American flag, and a $400 voucher to Locked and Loaded in Abbeville for a Smith & Wesson AR.
But this is the actual rifle.
Locked and Loaded owner Jay Ashley wants to make it very clear they aren't just giving away guns. Customers who plan to redeem the voucher have to pass required background checks.
What we don't want is someone that bought a car and they know they can't buy a firearm to give that to somebody else to come in here and get it. Not gonna happen. We'll squish it. We know the name of the person that bought the car, everybody signed that. And that's why we require a copy of their driver's license as well.
People can choose to use the $400 voucher for other items in the tactical store.
They can spend it on fishing equipment, they can spend it on hunting.
The GM tells me they do other specials during the year, including doing discounts for local heroes and military families. Stephanie Borman, 7.
Wow. And I say wow just because I understand. Car salesman people, I get it. You gotta have gimmicks. You gotta have something to get people in the door. Not surprised in the South, because if you put guns, flags, and the Bible together, apparently people come running. I always thought to me it was always chest pies and brownies, but hey, you gotta use different bait to get different fish. I get it. But still, it is amazing to me the whole significance of it is like, well, we have people that come all the way over, buy a car to get, and I'm like, the attraction doesn't really seem to be more about the Bibles. The attraction seems to be more about the $400 voucher for firearms. And I get it from the owner of the gun establishment. He makes it clear that, oh yeah, we're not just letting anybody come in. I mean, we need to do background checks, do all that stuff. I get that. You're covering your own butt, which you should. But at the same time, just certain gimmicks, which I shouldn't be surprised. I used to say sometimes when it really comes down to it, for certain gimmicks, it would always be, they used to always say, only in the South, or only in the North, or only in Canada, or any of those things. Let's just be honest, this is going to be one of those only in the South do you see this type of promotion. But again, at least they're being responsible. Can't really knock them for it. It's just, wow. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for our stories, guys. So we're going to get to our feel-good news segment. Basically what this is on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are sometimes a little dark, sometimes not very uplifting and heartwarming, things of that nature. So we try to find things, like I said, considering this is a weekend, we try to find things that are upbeat, make you feel happy, kind of leave on a good note. And the stories that we have here, well, let's just start with the first one, my personal favorite, because every time I see her perform, it is just, you can say black girl magic all you want to. I sit there and say, this is an athlete that needs to be praised, really.
Belongs to Simone Biles.
Simone Biles, once again in a league of her own. Already considered the greatest of all time, today she nabbed her 5th all-around world title. 2 more medals here in Germany, and she'll become the most decorated gymnast at the World Championships ever.
I feel good after today. Put out good performances. Wasn't too crazy, didn't do anything too crazy.
Does she do it?
Biles admitting she held back, noticeably absent, a double-double dismount off the balance beam, known as the Biles. Unprecedented for its difficulty, last week the International Gymnastics Federation opted to assign the skill a lower value than experts believe it's worth.
You're credited with really pushing the sport forward with your innovative moves. Do you feel like they're being valued appropriately?
The beam dismount, we're a little bit disappointed with that, but at the end of the day, we can only control what we do, not what they do.
The only competition is herself, and so it's like, well, how do you compete against yourself? You only just try to get better, and so that's what she's doing with these skills, yet they're not awarding them.
But tonight, there was only one way for Simone Biles to finish her performance. She dropped the mic. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News, Stuttgart, Germany.
And again, like I said, with Simone Biles, you gotta appreciate her. I mean, literally, I like to call her the Venus and Serena of gymnastics, because the last time I paid attention to anything in gymnastics, it was won by Dominique Dawes, and I had the biggest crush on her during the Olympics. I am not ashamed to admit that. But again, that was like the last time I ever looked into anything. Expect the other young lady who's actually in gymnastics. But again, Simone Biles, for what she is, that is amazing talent in itself. It really is. And yes, I did go about the story about my last week about some fact of the matter is that they try to restrain her because she was doing things that most gymnasts could not do, basically because of her ability. And yeah, she was getting penalized for it. But again, she I think will go down as probably one of the most all-time highly decorated gymnast. I keep on wanting to pronounce it the wrong way. But again, just love her story. Love the fact that she doesn't let her get it down. And again, the Venus and Serena Williams of gymnastics, because you would think for her little self to be able to pull off these routines. And keep in mind, I am not the kind of guy that watches gymnastics, but I'll watch her and her routine, and dude, she's awesome. I can't say anything more about that. But anyway, I just thought that was cool. My last story that I have here for Feel Good News segment is just a reminder to me of just basically saying you're never too old to start anything. Much like this man right here, 93-year-old Ray Bootwell has decided that in the 93 years of his life, he said, you know what? I'm going to run a cupcake shop. And he did. He actually pretty much opened up his own cupcake shop. I wish I was in New Jersey, because he has this thing called Ray's Boozy Cupcakes. And if you haven't figured out by the name, yes, some of his cupcakes are infused with alcohol. And it's amazing to me that a 93-year-old man is basically expanding his business. Ever since he opened his doors 2 years ago, he is now not opening one store, but 3 stores. And think about this. The man is 93 years old. And I've always said it best. It doesn't matter what part you are in life, whether you're 18, 38, 48, 58, or even 98. It's never too late to start. And as you can see from a 93-year-old man that decided to make boozy cupcakes and is now basically building his empire, can't really knock the guy. I just wish I was there to try boozy cupcake. But anyway, aside from that, guys, that's pretty much going to be it for today's show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for commenting. I'm sorry if I didn't see the watch. I had a watch party set up, so I didn't get to see any comments. If you left it on there, I'll try to go back there later and try to answer them. But thank you, everybody, that watched today. Just some shameless plugging before I do get out of the way here. I'm not the only cat that actually has podcasts. I'll start with my buddy Trace, who's in here. Trace Brown, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, has several podcasts of his own. His first one is The Bump Down. The Bump Down is a musical podcast, which is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over chart work and goes over what's coming up on the main scene, as well as the underground, as well as promoting artists that he's working with, especially the Hickey J, Who's Hungry, Let's Eat. Also, Trace, by the way, I did send you something about Tekashi 6ix9ine that I hope you talk about, because I want you to, because only you can bring it up the way I know you can, because I don't like mumble rap, so you already know my stance on that. But again, and also, if you are an artist that wants to have your music played on the Bump Down, please reach out to Trace Brown on Facebook, and he'll be able to get you set up on how you can do that. Aside from the Bump Down, he does have another podcast called Smoke with Truth. What is the Smoke with Truth? The Smoke with Truth is I like to call the not for the faint of heart podcast, to where you really have those real conversations. As I said before about Trace, very unorthodox but very intelligent brother who definitely has a very different opinion that's a breath of fresh air that needs to be said. I stress that heavily just because me and him have had discussions, we've had arguments, we've had debates, only because even though we are coming from different spectrums, we're always able to have that conversation, and I appreciate that every time I have it with him. But again, if you're also trying to have that perspective, and you can do it by checking your ego at the door, then the Smoking Truth is best for you, which look up on Trace Brown on Facebook to see when he'll be announcing those and going from there. My other friend of mine, Von Reed, Ada.Wespoon on Facebook, VZA on YouTube, has several podcasts of his own. He actually first has the VSTs, which is a podcast over various news. That news can be video games, music, trailers. He likes to actually bring things to light that, sometimes may not get a light shown on other things. Interactive show just like mine. He also has the Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ, which he will be doing later today. Hopefully all of us here. I look forward to that show because Random as Fuck is basically the pool of ratchetness we sometimes dip our toes into to actually, take a break from life and have a chuckle. And he has assured me that there are videos out there that I'm going to like. Now, keep in mind, I do stress this before, like this is a video that you can go on World Star Hip Hop. Just look up Burger King on fire. I think it's how it went. No. Customers still at Burger King while on fire. Now, they're not on fire. To give you a synopsis of the whole thing, and it's still my favorite video to this day, is just that the Burger King customer is sitting at the drive-thru window while the Burger King's on fire, and the employees are staying outside because the place is on fire. The person is still at the drive-thru waiting on the change. I wish I could make that up. Still one of my favorite videos, but Vaughn has assured me that there are better ones out there. We will see, because I'm a very strict critic when it comes to that. But again, the interactive show, which we'll be doing later today, here on Facebook Live and also on YouTube. Also, his other show is Rhythmness, which he just did last night. What is Rhythmness? It is basically where you reminisce over the rhythm, where he goes over albums, both past albums to revisit the past, but the present albums and upcoming ones to basically just give an honest consumer opinion about a 4-tier rating system. If you want to know the 4-tier rating system, you have to watch Rhythmness to find out. Also, along with that, my other buddy here, aside from Vaughn, another friend of ours who will be here later on today, Thomas Reed, aka we call the Mountain Puncher, will have a To Be Determined podcast. What is To Be Determined? To Be Determined is a fitness-based podcast. Anybody who has seen Thomas or has seen Thomas in the gym realize the man just stays at the gym, literally and figuratively, all 7 days. Don't get me wrong, I love the gym as well, but I don't go on the weekends if I can avoid it. But again, he loves fitness. He loves actually trying to do things to stay fit, loves talking about workouts, certain things that are on his heart, and things that he just sees in the gym. Like some personal trainers that are just too close to women doing squats. You know who you are. But again, To Be Determined, which will also be live on Facebook. Just look up Thomas Reed on Facebook to see when he'll be doing that. And of course, with my own shows, especially with How the Frack We Got Here, which is every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. And of course, later tonight, we will definitely have an Off Limits podcast, which I want to do something funny. I do have a funny topic for Off Limits podcast. I think for a lot of us who are a little bit more seasoned are probably going to enjoy this. All you kids that were probably born after 1995 probably won't know what we're talking about, but I'm looking forward to it. And Off Limits podcast is just basically a podcast to where we just talk about subjects because we go there. I keep on saying the whole time, the whole idea of Off Limits podcast is just that as we were growing up, we were told not to talk about sex, politics, religion, just because we want to avoid uncomfortable situations. I believe avoiding those uncomfortable situations has led to a lack of civil conversations, which means that nowadays you just have people yelling at each other, trying to talk over each other. Simply put, no one is actually getting across their ideas because they're too busy trying to force each other's opinion down each other's throats. What we try to do at Off Limits is just that we try to change that narrative. We try to not only talk about those subjects that nobody wants to talk about, but we try to do it so in a moderate way to where everybody is heard, every opinion is taken, and even though we may not agree, we always see where the other person's coming from. That's the entire idea. So, Off Limits podcast will definitely be later tonight, probably 8 p.m. or so. Also, I'll be on live on Facebook and on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, we do have YouTube pages. So, if you do look up To Be Determined, if you do look up DJ King Anyway, and if you look up BigBZ.podcast, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up Off Limits, all of these are active YouTube pages to where you can like, share, and subscribe, and be able to see every podcast that we've done so far. Also, my other buddy at Wingnut Gaming, my my buddy Wingnut, who's also on Facebook, loves to do first-person shooters. He loves Call of Duty. He loves Apex Legends. He loves Borderlands. He loves World of Warcraft. He loves Fortnite, which thank God he hasn't played that in a while. I mean, again, his choice, not mine. But very social cat and just loves to be able to bring other people into the fold and always wants to talk to people while playing. So again, if you ever want to look him up, just look up Wingnut Gaming on Facebook and like, share, and subscribe from there. So the last thing I got to say about how the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. Staying informed just basically means that you're not accepting anything at face value. You're actually going in and trying to actually find the truth for yourself and being able to look at all sources and be able to do the same thing with someone else in order to inspire them. The reason being because an informed country can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the Frack We Got Here. So thank you everybody for watching this podcast, and if you're watching this in playback, just go ahead and comment live. I know you Trump supporters will. But aside from that, guys, thanks for all watching. Look forward to seeing you in another podcast. Have a great afternoon, or afternoon. It's over 12. It's afternoon. Whew, I need to wake up. Anyway, guys, have a good one.